This will be a long one, so grab some popcorn. And here we are again, Heartbreaking Talks listeners. Today we have a lot of stories about cheating in relationship. And, as you asked, revenge stories. So, never thought I'd be here, but yet here I am. This weekend, my wife and our daughter went to visit her mom. I couldn't go because I couldn't get the time off work, and we decided it would just be a girls' weekend for them. I'm a firefighter in a large southern city and was on a call and gearing up when our dispatcher called in to tell me that there was an emergency. I wasn't really needed on the work call, so I got my cell phone and found a bunch of texts from my kid and a couple from a number I didn't have in my phone. In the course of about 11 text messages, I learned that my daughter had gone ice skating and fallen, breaking her wrist. She was in the emergency room but couldn't get treatment because no one could find my wife. The number that I didn't know belonged to a friend of my wife's who had gone to the emergency room to sit with my kid. She was the chaperone for the girls who had gone skating. So I called this friend, and after a lot of hemming and hawing, she admitted that my wife had gone to dinner with some random guy. Well, we always leave our location shared with the family because of my job, and sure enough, I pulled up an address and googled it, and it was a freaking hotel. This was 10 p.m. It's now almost 4 hours later, and she hasn't answered my texts, but she did finally call our kid. I have permission and insurance information, and she got a cast and a referral to see an orthopedist when she gets home. The friend took our daughter back to her grandmother's and texted me. She said, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way about a guy's name. Apparently, it's been going on every time she's gone home that I haven't gone. Meanwhile, I've worked countless hours of overtime to pay off our house, take us on nice vacations, and send our daughter to the most expensive private school in our city. I'm a fool." Now for the top comments, lawyer and file for divorce. You're not a fool, buddy, your wife is. You're doing your family duties and working hard for y'all's life. I guess all the family knows now, at least, what kind of slur your wife is. Send your wife back to her parents. I am so sorry, what a piece of shush your wife is. You know what to do. Save all the texts between you and that friend. Get a lawyer. Do not waver. If your lawyer clears you, for sure let as many people in your circle know so she doesn't control the narrative. Stay strong. She will try to win you back. If AP has a spouse, tell the spouse. Work on you and focus. Do not let her weasel back in. You can spend some time looking at so many stories in the sub. Look at the ones who reconciled and took them back. It doesn't change. Everybody thinks they are the exception or special. They're not. I'm so sorry for your situation. Your wife was disloyal to both your daughter and you. That's lower than low. See a divorce lawyer this week. Now for the first update, spoke with a lawyer as many of you suggested. During that conversation, I realized that she doesn't really have a lot of access to money that is hers. Removed her as an authorized user of my credit cards. Put two-factor authentication on just about anything else that she might try to get her hands on. Pulled my credit report to discover that she opened a joint credit card I didn't know about. Since I'm on the account as well, I was able to log in and print out the charges, a basically perfect timeline of restaurants and hotels that she has paid for. Turns out she also has accounts on Tinder and Bumble, which showed up when I combed through the last few phone bills. Have a pal who is a deputy sheriff in these parts who is going to be here tonight when she gets home. I've gotten her a room at a nearby hotel for the week and paid for it up front. She can sleep there for now and figure it out on her own starting tomorrow. Daughter and I spoke, and she knows what is up and is angry at mom. So next steps are to find someone for her to talk to. Thanks to my job, I've got great insurance, so that is one less thing to worry about. Decided I'm also going to come clean to her mother once wife and daughter are on the plane back here. Taking a couple of days off to deal with this. Thanks for the advice, everyone. I'll probably yank these posts down tonight or tomorrow, so if you have any other last-minute advice, now is the time. Now for the top comments. Holy shit, she opened a credit card in your name to pay for her affair. Wow, that's really conniving. Good luck, my guy. Don't delete these. Let this be a blueprint for future men on how to handle situations like this or similar. You may be helping someone months or years down the line. You're doing the right thing, buddy. Protect you and your child at all costs. She might try to manipulate you, your daughter, so be careful. Also, there's no way to let the dude's wife know that she's being cheated on as well. Now for the final update. This will be the final update on this sad situation. First off, thanks to everyone who weighed in. It's amazing the number of fellow firefighters and Leos I've heard from who are in similar situations. I took a few days of personal time away from the job in order to deal with all of this. The soon-to-be ex-wife and our daughter returned home late Sunday, and my daughter immediately fled to her room and closed the door. My wife said something along the lines of "I guess you must be pretty mad at me," and I told her the truth. That I was numb. The anger would come later, and it would be best if she was somewhere else for a while. My friend, the deputy sheriff, was there and said he would sit on the deck and be there if I needed him. I told my wife that I was recording this conversation to protect myself and my rights as a husband and father, and she said fine. I suspected at this point that she really seemed to think that she was going to talk her way out of it. What I didn't tell her was that I'd spent most of the last week talking with friends, my parents, my battalion chief at work, as well as a lawyer and a therapist. I've got a ton of leave and a supportive bunch of co-workers, and if I need to take months off to deal with this, I can. I just said that I was disappointed in her, but mostly I was angry that our daughter got caught in the crossfire of her bad behavior, that she had put our child at risk to get laid. She didn't admit or deny, but then her tone changed, and she almost immediately started in on saying things like, "Remember the time we trying to get me to remember good times?" After about 3 of those mentions, I told her the truth. I couldn't trust my memories because I had no idea what she might have been doing. When that didn't work, she went into the whole "I was lonely because you were working so much" crap. I reminded her that we made a deal about how to pursue a future where we could retire early. I got so mad at this point that I pointed out to her that if she had behaved, we could have retired when she was 48 or so, but that I wanted her to remember that promise, because now she is going to have to work for herself. I'm not usually a vindictive person, but I like the idea of her having to work until she's 70 years old and being angry every time she gets dressed to go to a job that she hates. Side note. One of my work buddies, who is also married, has vacationed with us a couple of times. He made this observation. Every time we've gone somewhere, there's been a day or two where my wife has contrived an excuse to be apart from the family. So, I played a hunch and said something like, "This wasn't the first time. This was just the first time you got caught." She just hung her head and very quietly said, "Yes." So, I have that admission on tape. She went to the hotel without objection. She wrote me long emails saying things like, "I'm sorry, and I'm not sure why I did what I did." I did not reply. Before she even got home, I'd spoken with her mother and told her about the fact that she was at a hotel with another man while her daughter was in the emergency room, and also about the credit card that she opened. Her mother did not say much, but I told her that if I had any inkling that she was aiding and abetting the wife's bad behavior, that I would severely limit her access to her granddaughter. That was probably a mistake on my part, but I was just so freaking angry. The mother-in-law swears that she knew nothing and that she was worried sick that something had happened to my wife when no one could reach her. I also told the mother-in-law that I was not going to allow the wife back into the house if I could do so, and that I expected her to understand that I've never yelled or hit or cheated or done anything else other than the things I promised to do when we got engaged. That seemed to resonate with her. My wife's parents split up when she was in high school because her dad was a serial cheater, so maybe that registered with her mom. I sent a text to the friend who took my daughter to the emergency room. I told her I didn't particularly care if she replied. I said I appreciated her being at the with my daughter, but I also said that if she had previous knowledge of where my wife was going, then she should know that she had a huge part in destroying my family and that a true friend would never encourage shitty behavior. I haven't figured out how to get in touch with her husband yet, but I suspect based on just sort of reading between the lines that she and my wife were kind of egging each other on. Thursday morning, I got a text from the wife saying that her mother had rented her a furnished apartment pretty close to our house and that she would like to come and get some personal things on Friday when I went to work. I said that was fine. I should point out that during all of this, she only texted our daughter one time, and even in her communications with me, she never even asked about her. When she told me she got the apartment, she didn't ask if our daughter could come visit. I told her that I wasn't working on Friday, but that I would be out of the house for a couple of hours so she could get some things. I left, but I had a process server waiting across the street. When she pulled up in the driveway, he handed her divorce papers. They included a notice from my attorney that I intend to file for sole custody and that she would have visitation rights. She called my voicemail and was almost incoherent with rage. I've never heard her so angry or, frankly, sounding so unbalanced. Also, my lawyer had a very good suggestion that I will pass along for anyone else in this position. I got a new cell phone. I don't carry the phone that has the number the wife knows. I've only given a few people the new number. My lawyer, my sister, my daughter, my boss, and a couple of good friends from work. I take a look at the old phone once a day and see if there's anything I need to deal with. I know there's a lot of other advice out there that I did not touch on, but there is no need for a paternity test because my daughter looks exactly like me. I will get an STD panel, but I don't think that's an issue either. My lawyer did get notified that the wife has hired a lawyer, but I made it clear that I'm going to stay in the house and the daughter is going to stay there with me. I may have to write her a large check thanks to the vagaries of family law, but at this point, I really don't give a damn. I'd probably add a zero to the check if I could get rid of her 6 months earlier. Now for the top comments. Take care of you and your daughter, get therapy for both of you, you will be okay. Well done bro, best of luck with the divorce outcomes. She's trash and will be trash, but not your trash. It's going to be awesome when the affair fog completely dissipates. You're handling this really well, I admire that. But more than that, I hope that when you get some time to process everything on a personal level, that you'll have some good friends who will be there for you. Okay guys, now let's go to the next story. I think you're gonna like it. Don't forget to drop a like to support me. My story is about infidelity after almost 2 decades. I need to tell my story because I need others to hear it. Right now, I feel like I have no one else to tell it to. On May 23, 2022, at 5:32 a.m., I discovered that my wife had been cheating on me. Every morning before work, I would kiss my wife and tell her that I loved her. This morning, she was snoring loudly in bed. She had been out drinking and only came back home around 3 a.m. This had been a trend lately, a trend that I accepted because I knew social interaction was important to her. I trusted her and did not want to stifle her. I did not like that she was doing this, but I thought as a good husband, I had to allow this as she told me she needed this. I have been working more lately. A lot more work had picked up and we wanted to build a dream house together. A house that had been on hold for years due to permits and complications. I wanted us to be financially secure in these troubling times. I knew my wife was lonely, but we had plans for the future. We had a honeymoon planned and I thought more time with her friends would be enough for the short term. When I walked into the bedroom, I saw her phone at the edge of the bed. I knew her password and I wanted to check it. I wanted to confirm that my suspicions were misplaced, that I was being paranoid, and most of all, that I was wrong to ever think my spouse would be cheating on me. I took the phone and looked through her messages. It only took a few texts to see that there was something going on, that I had been cheated on. I put the phone back where I found it, had no idea how to react, and left the house driving to work. I cried the whole way there. I debated driving my car into a ditch, but I didn't. I arrived at work and worked a bit. Later, I received the daily text I always received from my wife about her telling me that she thought I was handsome, that she loved me. I didn't want to deal with this in any way, and I did not want to start this over text. So, I replied in kind, and then I cried some more in the work bathroom. Halfway through my day, I received an anonymous text message. Someone reaffirmed what I already knew, that my wife was cheating on me. They did not want to be involved but cared enough to let me know. It hurt so much knowing that other people already knew, that it was blatant enough and I didn't know right away. I still do not know who sent that text, but I am grateful that someone cared enough about either me or the sanctity of marriage to let me know. Reaching the end of the day took forever, but it came. I cried again on the way home. My wife was at our neighbor's house drinking and having a good time. I drove to where we were staying and texted her to come home. I remember her walking to the front door so vividly. She was fine. There was no pain present and I knew that everything in our lives was about to change. I told my wife that I had received a troubling text message today. I asked her if she was cheating on me while showing her the message on my phone. She looked directly at me and said no. She wanted to know who sent the text, but I did not know either. I then asked her to see her phone. She handed it to me without question and asked, "Don't you trust me? I would never do that to you." She asked me, "Do you really think I would cheat on you?" All while shaking her head in disbelief that I would not trust her. My heart sank further when I looked at her phone. She had deleted all the incriminating messages. There was a brief moment where I believed her. Did I have some sort of delusion of seeing those messages earlier? Was I a bad husband for searching through her phone? I knew I hadn't just made this up. I looked at her and told her that I had read her phone this morning, that she had deleted the text, and that I knew something was going on. She told me that something was going on, that a neighbor had kissed her, and that she didn't want to tell me because she didn't want a little mistake to become a big issue. I knew there was more to it than that from the text I had read. I wanted to leave right away. I wanted to grab a bag and go see my parents. I wanted to go be with someone who cared and loved me, but I was in shock. She had lied straight to my face. She had tried to shift the blame on me, and if I hadn't already known the truth, she would have let me feel like I was a bad partner. I feel like she would have been okay with that. We began to talk and agreed we should talk more about this. We have been together for close to 2 decades. It was so much to give up. In between tears, we both spoke about issues we had been dealing with. We cried, we held each other, and we spoke more about some of the failings of our relationship. A decrease in intimacy, not prioritizing each other, and not feeling wanted. There were so many problems, and honestly, hearing them out loud felt good. It felt good because they were so manageable, but it didn't deal with the cheating and the lying. I took the next day off so we could talk more. When my wife had decided she would start hanging out with our neighbors on her own, we had an upfront and frank discussion. I warned her that men often lacked any form of female attention, and showing interest in them, even friendly interest, could quickly lead to non-friendly feelings on their or her part. We both discussed that if any lines were crossed, she would let me know right away and end those friendships before they turned into something that could destroy our relationship. And I believed her at that time. We had discussed so many times if there was anything that could tear our love apart, anything that could ruin our marriage, and we agreed that the only possible thing would have been cheating. She did this knowing this. She then began to tell me more of the incidents that had been occurring for weeks. Now, it was not just her being kissed, but her partaking in all of it as well. She told me that she had informed him multiple times that what he was doing was wrong, but it didn't stop her from going back. She told me that there was no sexual activity or anything below the belt. She had told me that she had broken off the relationship with him on May 20th. My heart wrenched again on the 23rd when I found out they were still sending dirty texts in the early morning. Every time she retold the story, it seemed worse. Knowing that we had just been so open with each other for the past 24 hours and she was still lying to me broke me again. I cried more, but I still wasn't ready to let this go. The next day, I tried to go to work, but once I arrived, I needed to leave. I couldn't look anyone in the face without starting to tear up. I told my boss I needed to leave and that I needed the rest of the week off. He gave me the time off without hesitation. This was the first time I had really debated ending my life over this and not just had a passing thought. I was in a car and it felt like it would be easy to do, but I didn't want to kill myself. I just didn't want to be alive right now. I cried and said out loud, I'm dying and I have no one to talk to, no one to help me. Then I drove back to her. We spoke more and I told her I needed to know the full story about her infidelity. It had been going on for weeks. She had brought him to her birthday party that my parents had held at their house. She had introduced the man she was cheating on me with to my parents. The man was one of my distant cousins. My mom was so happy to see him because it had been years since they last saw each other. This broke something else in me. It made me feel like she felt no remorse for the cheating that had occurred and that it meant so little to her that she would bring this man into the lives of my family. I realized that I could not trust her, that I could not believe her story, and that honestly, she did not feel overly bad about the cheating and lying. Her loneliness and sadness were justification for doing it. It was at that moment I also realized that I was in an abusive relationship. My wife had a rough time growing up. She had been cheated on, raped, and lied to. It had never crossed my mind that she could turn into the abuser, but I felt like she had. She had first-hand experience of what awful was, and she was able to perform that evil onto the man she says she loves the most in the world. She did it because I was not attentive enough, because I did not make her feel wanted, and because I had not always made her a top priority. I sunk further. An old memory surfaced when we were in university. She had cheated on me then. There was now a pattern, and I had no way to believe or know if more infidelity had happened again between then and now. We kept talking, though. We talked about the changes we wanted to make in our lives, how we both wanted to be better people, and exhausted, we fell asleep holding each other. We woke up and began to kiss. We had sex. I knew it was wrong to do this to myself, but I could tell she wanted to feel intimate. She wanted to feel wanted, and at that moment, she wanted me. And despite all that happened, I wanted her and wanted to give her those feelings. We decided we needed to spend some time apart after this. We had a counseling session scheduled for the next Monday, but we should be apart to think clearly and to figure out if we still wanted to be together, if we even wanted the same things in life, and if I could ever get past this. I have next to no close friends, and my parents have always been close to me and my confidants. I said that I would be staying with them, and I knew she would ask me something at that moment, something I would agree to, not because it would help me in any way, probably the opposite, but something I would need to agree to if our relationship were to ever have a chance to continue. She asked me not to talk about the infidelity with them, and so I didn't. I spoke with my parents. I did not lie to them, but I did not tell them the whole truth. I have been living with them for the past 2 days, talking about some of our other big issues. Me finding out I really want kids, her feeling of burden taken off by not wanting to have them. My parents have shown me nothing but love and support. They have grown to love my wife like a daughter. I did not want them to see her in that awful light. In all honesty, I love my wife, and despite all this, I would never want to hurt her or for others to treat her poorly. That's not in my nature. That is why I am writing this. I needed to tell my story for it to be heard, since I am not ready to tell those in my direct circle. I am still uncertain about what I'm going to do, regardless of how obvious all the signs point to leaving each other. I am hopeful that counseling will help me decide. Despite the sadness and hurt I feel, I want her to be happy, and maybe I cared and still care for her happiness more than mine. All my visions of the future always contained her. I think that's why this is so hard. I know I am blinded by my love for her. It feels awful that being so in love is such a bad thing. Writing this has helped me understand and deal with my emotions and feelings. I hope to write more about this in either private or public. If my experience resonates with you, I would be happy to hear yours and to sympathize and be there for you. If you have read all of this, thank you for listening. Edit. I want to thank everyone here who has reached out, commented, and taken time to provide such thought-provoking advice. Some things I didn't want to hear but needed to hear. I needed this help and I didn't know I could get it. Thank you. Guys, we are going to the next story. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe my channel. My wife betrayed me, but I can't break up. I'm not sure if this is the correct place for this, but my head is scrambled at the moment. Recently, during a bout of paranoia, I went through my wife's phone. We've been together for over 10 years, and it's the first time I've ever done it. I found messages between her and her friend from last year, where she admitted she was spending a lot of time with a guy I didn't know she was spending time with. The messages also said they had kissed and had some other sexual contact. I confronted her, and at first, she denied it. So I pushed. Then she admitted it but refused any details. So I pushed harder. She finally admitted that she put herself into a very vulnerable situation with him, and he had raped her. She blames herself for putting herself in the situation which, while a stupid situation to put yourself in, doesn't make it her fault. I won't go into details, but I have 100% confidence that that is exactly what happened. Me pushing her to talk about it because I had no idea that was going to be the outcome has really messed her up. She told me it took her a long time to put that incident in a box and lock it away, and now I've brought it all up, she's fallen apart mentally, even though she's always been very mentally sound, which I completely understand. The problem is I don't know what to do. She has betrayed me, cheated to an extent, but she's in a terrible place at the moment and I can't tell her that it's over right now. I also can't let her believe everything's fine only to call it off later. I love this girl more than life itself, but I can't stay with her after the way she treated me. Edit. To clarify, I have seen evidence that her account of what happened is without a doubt completely true. Edit 2. Including possible TW. She has accepted from the start that everything leading to that night was cheating. She isn't acting like the victim in our situation, she's not expecting sympathy, she's just reprocessing the memory of what was a pretty horrific sexual assault. The evidence I have seen is a conversation between her and her attacker after the incident in which she is trying to get him to accept that it was without her consent, including a memorable message from him asking if she really didn't want it, why didn't you fight harder? She doesn't want to go to the police, and I believe that is her choice to make. I wasn't here looking for advice on whether to believe her, as I stated, after a period of skepticism, I believe her story 100%. I was just looking for some advice on how to move forward with the situation, given that she's already suffering enough trauma. I worry that maybe a breakup would push her over the edge. Let's read what other users think about this story. Better Refrigerator said. I have an ex who was hospitalized by the guy she was cheating with. It's hard to feel two things at once. I didn't kick her out and I didn't end our relationship immediately. I let her heal and come home, etc. She didn't deserve that just because she was cheating, the same as your wife. But it doesn't mean they are suddenly absolved nor changed as people in that. You don't have to be okay with their behavior, and the essay doesn't mean they will never cheat again or have solved the problems that led to that eventuality. Once she was stable, I ended things with her. It sucked, but I couldn't get over it, and to be honest, yes, I judged her judgment in people and generally to such a degree that even if I could have gotten over the infidelity, I could never have trusted her again. Not because she was somehow to blame for this psycho's treatment of her, but because I knew enough about the situation by the time she healed to know that there were numerous red flags, tons of reckless behavior that jeopardized everyone's including my own health, and so on and so forth. Creating a smorgasbord of terrible and selfish decisions that destroyed an irreparable amount of my respect for her. And indicated very clearly that she didn't have a lot of respect for me, or us, or herself. It took me years to get over, and I lost some friends who thought she automatically deserved a second chance, but now, 15 years later, I'm glad I chose myself. Edit to clarify. It's also okay to still care about the safety and well-being of someone who hurt you, to love someone who hurt you, and still be angry. That's the second feeling I was talking about. It means you're a good person who can separate one issue from the other. This is rough, pal, but I promise you it will all be okay. What do you think, guys, about this controversial story? Let me know in the comments. And we are going to the next story. Let me start with a little background. My wife and I got married 3 years ago and have been together for 6 years. When we met, I was already in my third year of college for a special branch of a very productive industry, something like the USA Army. You go to a different country for a few months, do some really dangerous jobs, get paid a lot, come back a few months, and so on. In the beginning, I was going for 6, 8, or even 10 months away in order to get promoted as fast as possible. Now, I went around 4 years of medium salary in my country in just 3 months. It is a hard job, but I love it. My wife was very supportive, and I always knew that it is very hard for her to have this kind of lifestyle. I always tried to spoil her and compensate for my time spent away from her with tons of gifts and trips to exotic places. 2 years ago, when I came home after an extended contract, I had to stay almost 2 more months because all flights and borders got shut down during COVID, but I got 20% extra salary during this time. She told me she can't take it anymore. She goes crazy alone at home and she has nothing to do. She lost her job during COVID and did not want to work again after that, which I fully support her because I wanted her to be happy and money was not a problem. I was petrified, and at first, I believed she won the breakup. Then she continued with "I love you so much, and I want you to give me a baby, so I can take care of him, and have a little bit of you when you are gone on contracts." After 5 months of hard work with no women in a 100-kilometer range, making a baby was done very fast and multiple times just to be sure. If you know what I am talking about, I was nervous for the first month because we always feared we may not be able to make a baby. For the first 4 years, we did not use any kind of protection except pull-out, and she never got pregnant. But after a few weeks, she wakes me up with a long kiss and a smile on her face, then shows me the test result. I was the happiest man alive. Everything changed. I was a man now. I was a father. I was on top of the world. I was going with her on every doctor appointment, and during the contract, I was asking for echo sounds instead of nudes. The birth had no complications, and everything went amazing. 1 month later, I go on another contract to make some money that should cover every need for our little baby. Halfway during this contract, I received a text from my wife, which shattered my life. The text was short and simple, and I would never forget those 4 words that sent me into the deepest depression. I want a divorce. I did not understand. I tried to call her to find out what happened, and nothing. After a few days of talking back and forth, she said, "I want a divorce so I can marry with the love of my life." I was already preparing my suitcase because I made a request to my company to send me back as an emergency. When I got home, she and the baby were gone. 2 weeks later, I was in court to settle the divorce. During this, I found out that she had a lover for well over 4 years and she plans to marry him as soon as the divorce is done. Now, the laws in my country are different and I knew that my first priority should be a really good lawyer. My wife had a really shitty one and she decided to speak by herself without the help of the lawyer. Most of the time, her whole idea was I am a woman and he is never home. Well, even if the laws usually favor women in my country, cheating is considered to be a break of contract wedding contract and she wanted to take full custody of our children. In order for me to pay child support, I was not letting this happen. I spoke with my lawyer and an accountant and it seems that I only had to pay child support from my base salary. My danger bonus is not included in child support because it's for my life risk and mine alone, and because the company pays less taxes on the danger bonuses, I have a lot of them, and my base salary is around 10% of my income. When she found out that she would take almost nothing from child support and I gave her the option of me taking full custody of the child with a no contact rule, and I will never ask her for child support, she agreed in a second. Basically, she agreed to get out of our lives. We even changed the birth certificate of the child as me the father and a blank space for the mother. She gave up any kind of claim on the baby. During the trial, her lover was asked to come as a witness and the idiot agreed. He is an AliExpress version of Andrew Tate, an alpha man who treats women like shit and this seems to turn her on and he has a pretty good income. He has a small company that pays less than half my salary, but he is always at home. It's still a lot of money for our country right now. During the trial, he said they cheated behind my back for 3 years and that the baby is his. She tricked me into making a baby to cover up her cheating. He said all this just to make me feel horrible, I guess, because it's actually kind of illegal. My lawyer explained to me that it's something like alienation of affection and other legal terms. He basically said I knew they were married, but I decided to ruin the marriage. At this point, the child situation was already done and an agreement was signed. The judge asked my wife if it was true and she said yes. The judge ordered DNA tests just to confirm. After the DNA test confirmed what they said, the judge said she would let me cancel the agreement and settle the situation again with my wife. Now that the child is not biologically mine, I said, no your honor, this child is mine and I want to keep him. The judge was stunned for a minute, but then she said, well, if the agreement is a valid contract and since you don't want to void it, then Mr. L, you are a father and no one can take that child away from you. In my country, it doesn't matter who the biological parent is, it matters who is the parent in the documents. Since he knew he was the father from the beginning and did not come to the hospital to declare it, he automatically cancelled all his paternal claims. It may sound stupid, but it makes sense in order to protect the idea of a family. If a man recognizes a fatherless child at the hospital, he should not fear that the biological father will come back. It's in order to protect the value of family and encourage people to do a good thing and start a family. Now that the divorce is over, I have my baby and my wife is out of my life. The first thing I did was hire 3 babysitters to work 8 hours a day, so my child has someone to stay with him 24/7 and I have time. Revenge. To prepare for my revenge, I started 2 separate companies with the help of an online assistant from India. You can hire them for a cheap price and they will do whatever you need online. This guy made 2 super professional companies. One in industrial credits, which gives money to businesses for a lower rate than banks, and the second one was a copycat of my ex-company, but this one was in the same city as his. Both were made just for one client. My ex-wife's lover. My assistant started sending tons of ads to my credit company to him, emails, targeted Google, Facebook ads, etc. I was sure that he knows that if he needs money, this is the place he can take a lot with low rates. Next, I made a lot of advertising on the second company, but the company had only the machines in the rented space and only one worker, the cleaning lady. Every time someone called for the company services, they got immediately declined because we were overbooked. My ex's lover, let's call him D, was one of them, multiple times actually, and he goes mad every time he got rejected because he sees how big the competition is now. It was the time to give him the bait because my company had some problems in the main country. I don't even know in which country this company was registered. They changed the management and wanted to make some fast profits, so the regional manager wanted to sell some of the equipment. When he heard this, he started calling and sending emails to buy them out. The response was something like, we are an international company. We can't sell the brand, but we can sell some equipment. It was illegal for me to sell the company without showing him the accountant's data, which was empty, but the equipment I could sell just within a simple contract. He wanted the competition out of his city. He did not need the equipment, so the manager gave him a deal. If he bought their equipment for, let's say, 3 times the price, they could say in the contract that they would not make business again in the city. In just 2 hours, he received calls and emails on his first company for a credit for that equipment and blah blah. He knew he was out of money because he spent a lot on his future wedding with my ex-wife. He sent him a contract based on their evaluation. The equipment was not worth that money, so he would need to give them a guarantee. His company and he were not allowed to sell any equipment or parts of his company until he paid everything back. If he was behind in payment for 6 months straight, he would get all of it. Also, in the contract, it stated that the credit company would buy that equipment directly. Basically, he just gave himself his money. He made sure every single word of the contract was legal and was a deal good enough for him to take it. Later that same day, he sent him the signed contract. Normally, he should be able to pay for everything, even if the clients he hoped he would get from this company leaving are non-existent. He still should be able to pay if he gives him around 80% of his company income for the next 5 years. Fast forward a bit, on the day of the wedding, he went to give them an envelope. In his country, you give money in envelopes as a wedding gift. He started to laugh at him and told him to get out because he was not invited and he didn't need his money. He smiled and told him to open it. He looked inside and he was expecting to come to court next week. He laughed and asked what it was. He told him to see him in court and enjoy his wedding night. Next week, he came. He was suing him for child support. As he said in his country, if you are aware that you have a child and refuse to go to the hospital to recognize him, you are no longer the father, but you are still forced to pay child support, and it is actually an increased rate because you tried to dodge responsibility like running from a car accident scene. He did not want to pay, so he tried to say that he wants the child or co-custody, that he is the biological and blood and blah blah. This made him happy because he wanted to drag the trial as much as possible to drain him of all his money, but he couldn't. After the judge saw all his declarations during the divorce trial, she ended the trial really fast and forced him to pay him 40% of his and his company income since the child was born until he will finish college or he gets married. Guess who did not manage to pay, and guess who is the new owner of his company now? He doesn't work anymore. He just rents his company and spends almost all his time with his child. Updates. A lot of people asked him about the child and the fact that he is not a bio father. He answered to some comments, but he wants to put this answer here so people will stop asking. He does not plan to hide his child that he is not the bio father. As he said in a previous comment, they will talk about this when the time will come in high school, maybe around that age. Until then, he will try to be the best friend and paternal figure he can be, and if his child decides to go to the bio father, then he will not have any objection. Deceive into bonding, he needs this child more than you think. After all that happened, he doesn't want a relationship anymore and he is very lonely. Being financially free, he has no purpose in life anymore. And about the statistics, yes, statistics do not lie, and he did punish paternity fraud, but he punished the idiot who did it, not the innocent child. He harasses him every month if he is one day late on child support, and he has a lawyer on payday just to mess with him and scare him with another court call. He does not give a f about every man and blah blah. He takes care of himself and his child, and other people are not his business. If you are so insecure that you think he must punish his child so women will be scared to cheat on you, then maybe you're the problem. He completely agrees with your last statement, Op. The child is innocent and you are correct. He punished the right people for putting him through so much. Take good care of your baby boy, Op. Make sure that he grows up to be a man with morals and principles. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Cheers.